Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
We certainly are.
And today we're excited. We have Brittany Bento on with us. So we are going to talk with her. She does a bunch of different things. She does some light language transmissions. She does readings. So it will be a really fun and exciting interview with her. So welcome, Brittany. We're excited to have you on our podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to dive into conversation and just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started on your journey?
Yeah, so I will try to skip over like the details and just kind of give you, like the story in a nutshell. But for me, ever since I was really young, I always believed in like the other side. I was raised very Catholic actually. And I was able to see spirits as a child, which I know like a lot of kids are able to. It's, we're fresh into the world. Um, and because of my Catholic background and upbringing, a lot of fear was instilled in me. So I blocked it out for a really long time just because the unknown, I was fearful. I didn't know any better. And then as I started getting older, I started questioning my faith. And, I don't have anything against religion or anything like that. I believe that there is truth in all religions, but I really started questioning my religion. And I took a religions course in university just to kind of learn about the different other religions. And what I came to realize, like in my own mind, I'm like, all of these are the same. Like a lot of the messages are the same, the morals are the same, the values are the same, just in different verbiage, different language, essentially. So I started pulling away from the rigidity of religion and started, I guess, becoming more spiritual is kind of what I would always just call myself. And then I slowly got into tarot and that sort of a thing. But I kept it like in the closet, for lack of a better word. I didn't really tell people, especially because, my family. I know my mom was like, "Oh, like, are you communicating with the devil?" Like again, a lot of the fear.
No.
Yeah. And then I went through a really big breakup that acted as a catalyst for me, a catalyst to a lot of change. And as a result of this breakup, I quit my job. I was a teacher. I also was in a master's program for counseling, which I, realized wasn't actually in alignment with me. So I dropped out of school and I started working for myself essentially. And I started taking some development courses for mediumship. And by embarking truly on like the self-love and healing journey, I want to say gifts, but we all have our own unique gifts and abilities. It's like my gifts started unlocking more and more as I really focused on the healing. And then it's just been a crazy wild journey since then.
Yeah, it sounds right because it's funny. A lot of people I find that there is some kind of chaos or some kind of something
Trauma.
that happens to them that is a catalyst to kind of shift them into a different direction. Do you
Yeah.
find that with a lot of people as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like I always call it like the tower moment, or some people, or people go through multiple tower moments, or it's like one after the other, after the other, after the other. It's like the great undoing, to kind of realign you with your soul's path, or what is most in alignment with you. And it can be hard, a lot of people call it like the dark night of the soul, when you have no other choice but to surrender and let go of what you held on to so tightly, let go of what you thought your life was going to be. It's often it what's the word I'm looking for? It transpires over the course of a few years, and then the rebirth transpires over the course of a few years. For me, there was multiple tower moments, but it started with that one. It started with the one, and often that's all it takes. It starts with the one, and then it kind of pushes people into questioning things. And I think when you really start to get curious and you really start to reflect, things start to open up for you and there's no going back.
That is very true.
That
That is
is.
very, very, very true. And I think when you're like where I'm sitting right now, is I'm kind of wavering on this edge of not really sure which side to jump off of. And so I know that at some point I either need to make a decision or gratefully the universe will make the decision for me. So,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
know this. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, you gotta choose, but it's hard, right? When you're making
Yeah.
these choices based on, you still have to have that foundational bringing money into the house, doing those
Hmm.
things as well as finding
Hmm.
your passion. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, one thing that I like to say too is just because you might feel uncomfortable in a certain, let's say a job, let's say you're like, I know this is not what I'm in alignment with anymore. I know there's something else for me. A lot of people feel the need to kind of find that other thing right away. And it's like, take your time with it. Take your time with it. You don't need to find the other thing right away. That feeling of uncomfortability is simply your soul pushing you to look in another direction. Without that feeling, you wouldn't look in another direction. So it's reminding your ego, like, okay, it doesn't need to be right now. This uncomfortable time is simply like the transition, and I might be here for a little bit, and that's okay. It's the driving force to get you to that other side. So that's something I like to say too. Like before I quit teaching, it was 2 years in the making, essentially. And I had no idea what I wanted to do at the time. I just knew I was crying on the way to work every morning. It's like I wasn't in it and I knew I wasn't meant to be there, but I had no idea what else I was supposed to do. So I asked for help, I asked for guidance, and 2 years later, it all came about. But it took 2 years.
did you find along your journey that there was some kind of signs or things pushing you towards what your passion is and what you've ended up doing?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like the signs are always there. They're always there. They're always around us. And the more you focus inward and the more you connect with your authentic self and your intuition, the more you will be able to see and recognize the signs. Um, because I feel like too, a lot of people are like, well, where are the signs? I don't see them. And it's not so much like, I don't want to say it's not trying to look for them. Like, yes, try to look for them, but it's more so like turning inward, focusing on you, and you'll just start to see them more because they're always there. Your guides are always there. They're always with you. And it can take some time to, before you start noticing them. But for me, when I really, started that, all of a sudden, boom, numbers everywhere, this, that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, what would you tell somebody to do to, like, how do you turn inward, or how would you suggest to people to turn inward to start forming that relationship with
Mhm.
God, universe, consciousness, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely different for each and every person. And for me, it can vary from day to day. But for one, it's starting to slow down, like depending on where you're at, like start to slow down. When we get caught up in life, the 9 to 5, the this, the that, the da da da, and then we get home and retired and we watch TV and this, and there's constantly this static noise, always, always, always. And when you're constantly in the mind and when there's so much static around you, it's impossible to like tune in. The voice that's guiding you is the quiet voice, and it's unable to penetrate through the static if there's so much of it always there. So I just say, like, make an effort to slow down, whatever that might look like for you. Maybe it's starting by going for a half an hour walk. Like, don't even listen to music. Go somewhere where you're just with yourself. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's journaling. But really starting with the slowing down and really learning how to turn down the noise, because that in and of itself is going to take time. You're not just going to wake up tomorrow and be able to turn down the static noise. You're going to have to learn how to do that. And that in and of itself is a process. So I think by just really starting to slow down and see what works for you, like what works best for you in regards to like quieting the static. And it'll be different for different people. And it might change day to day. Like I said, some days I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. Other days I sit and meditate. Other days I journal. Other days maybe I'm painting something and I'm just, it brings me in that state of meditation. Um, so just figuring out whatever that is for you.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I do too.
Yeah, I think that when we're creative and things like that, I think we allow that in a little bit more because, like you said, we're not as distracted with all the noise that's coming in from everything. And I know for
Mhm.
myself, like I have a morning ritual where I meditate and do that kind of thing, but I also try to find silence throughout the day and then,
Mhm.
being grateful at the end of the day and
Mhm.
realizing just all the things that we do have to be grateful for.
Yeah, 100%. And, one thing that comes to mind too, as you say that, is just being present in what you do, and this is something I still work on. I'm sure all of us are still working on. Like, if I'm washing the dishes, it's like, why can't I just wash the dishes? Do I need to have a YouTube video playing in the background? Do I need to be listening to a podcast? Not that those are bad things, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes just being present. And when you're really just present in the moment, not stressed about the past or future, it's a good way to connect with yourself as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I actually struggle with that. And I either am listening to something or I'm running around the house, right? It's like, oh, I straightened
Gotta
my
get that
hair, now
done.
I got to go and, throw the laundry in. It's like, why
Yeah.
can't I just get ready and just,
Mhm.
you know, but it just feels uncomfortable, I think,
Mhm.
because I think so many of us struggle to be in silence. And for me, I practice it. So it's like,
Yeah.
why can't I just do this one thing?
Yeah, yeah. And it is a practice, right? It's a practice. You need to practice it. It's like anything else. You stop practicing, it's going to get harder when you go back to it again. And I think just in society today, we're not programmed that way, right? We're programmed to be busy, especially in North America. Hustle, 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 doing this, doing that. Oh, the more you do, the more successful you'll be. Oh, you don't want to sit and do nothing. That's lazy. So it's moving through those limiting beliefs as well, which takes time. So it is going to be uncomfortable at first. And that's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. A lot of people tell me, Brittany, I can't meditate. Like, I just can't do it. It's like, you can just start slow, and it is going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to get it in a day. It might take a year until you really start to feel comfortable with it, but it requires that regular, consistent practice.
Yeah, I agree.
I find as we go along too, we change how we listen. We change how we wait for the messages. Like recently I'm going through dreams where I'm dreaming something. It wakes me right up. And now I'm
Mm,
awake thinking about what I dreamt. Okay, and
mm,
deciphering it right then and there, then going back to sleep. So it's like
interesting.
spirit wants their spirit saying, no, no, you got to pay attention right now. I have
Yeah.
this message right now you need to know. And it's working out fine, but it is interesting how the universe just changes it around for you.
Yeah.
Listen to it this way or do it this
Yeah.
way, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you're right that it does happen, and the more you can just go with the flow,
Yeah.
the more that, will come through. But
Yeah, and I think sometimes they do that because if we're not listening when we're in our waking hours, because
Mm.
we're too distracted or too much on our minds, that's the only way to get through is in your dreams, right?
Right,
Yep.
right. They'll get
Yeah.
they'll get through to you when they can. They'll definitely take advantage of it.
One way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, how did you get into the light language transmissions?
Yeah, so that was something that really just unfolded naturally for me on my journey. When I started tapping into light language, I had no clue what it was, if I'm being completely honest. I so I'll just kind of take you to to the beginnings of it. So I journey with psilocybin, and the first time, or on one of my journeys with psilocybin, it's like my body just started moving on its own, and I'm like, whoa, like what is going on? Like this is so cool. It happened, and then it happened again the next time I journeyed with psilocybin. And then it just all of a sudden started happening when I was not on any plant medicine at all. And I didn't know what it was at first. I didn't know that light language can be transmuted like through the body. I, only briefly heard of it online, and it was only ever like verbal light language that I heard. So I was wrong with what thought it was. Like I kind of jumped to conclusions. I thought I was doing something called trance mediumship, and through my journey, I realized like, whoa, Brittany, you jumped the gun on that. Like that's that's not what you're doing. Um, but with time, and it took about a year to really develop. Yeah, it took about a year to develop and just practicing, letting kind of like the energy just take over. I don't know if take over is the right word because like I'm in control. I could stop at any time I want, but it just feels like energy moving through me, and it completely guides my movements. And then I also started channeling it through my voice as time went on as well. And yeah, it wasn't anything that I set out to do, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do light language. It just kind of, as I embarked on my healing journey, like really, it was just the healing journey, focusing on me and self-love and regulating calming my nervous system, the more I focused on that, it's like the more I unlocked these abilities. And it's like we all have these abilities within us. We all have different abilities, but it's like the more you focus on you, the more you'll unlock whatever your unique gifts are. That's something I always like to tell people because sometimes people are like, oh, I want to learn how to do that. How do you do that? And not that like you shouldn't have goals or anything like that, but it's like by focusing on you and your healing, you'll unlock your gifts, whatever they may be. Yeah, it wasn't something I tried to do, if that makes sense. It just kind of happened.
It does. So is there someone in particular or somewhere that you channel into to bring down these transmissions?
So I through my, journey, and I'm still learning more about this. I'm still learning more as I continue to learn how to channel. I've recently been channeling through voice as well, which has only been happening like song, I mean, like singing, which has only been happening over the last 6 months. So I'm still like learning, but one thing that they told me is like I'm channeling the winged ones. And I'm like, the winged ones, like, okay, like that's interesting. What is that? And they kind of explained it to me beings with wings. So, like the angelic frequency or dragon frequency, fairy frequency. Um, so, yeah, just tuning into that frequency and then bringing through the transmission, if that makes sense.
It does. I find it very interesting. I've actually kind of been addicted to this beyond belief on Gaia, and it's just like because
Mm.
there's so many different channelers and then
Hmm.
just so much information that I find, and I'm just kind
Hmm.
of at this moment craving that into my life. So I find it very interesting how people channel and which and who they channel from. So I find it
Right.
really interesting that the way
Yeah. I
is
think it's
here.
interesting too, but I'm still learning as well, if that makes sense. That's what I know so far. And one of my intentions is to actually, I've been getting to know my guides more on a personal level. And I feel like the voice I'm channeling, I feel it's like a specific voice. And I'm like, okay, I want to learn who this is. So, I don't want to jump to conclusions like I have in the past. So, yeah, it's still a journey for me, but that's what I know so far.
Very interesting.
Yes, it is.
So do you, when you're doing your readings and things like that and your mediumship, do you channel in at the same time or do you just do the readings if that makes sense?
Yeah, so it depends. It depends. So with mediumship, I've been in mediumship development courses for the past few years. And specifically with that, I do readings for the public, and that's specifically mediumship. So I put my mediumship cap on, and that's when I, expand my energy and connect to a past loved one in spirit. And it's really deciphering between the energies. It's like with connecting to a past loved one, it's like I physically will feel their presence, and I know it's like a human spirit. And it's evidential mediumship. So it's bringing through evidence that the spirit communicator is giving me so that the sitter can recognize who it is in spirit so that they know I'm not just talking shit out of my ass, for lack of a better word. This space is very unregulated. You need to be very mindful with, who you choose to get readings by and whatnot. But then when it comes to my other readings, so I call them like intuitive energy readings, and I let spirit lead. So that really, I will do psychism, so I tap into like the energy. I also will connect with like my spirit guides and their spirit guides as well. Sometimes during those readings, a spirit communicator, like a past loved one, will also want to come through. So it just kind of depends on like the sitter, what they need, but I trust spirit in that and I let them lead. So it's a little bit of a mix, if that makes sense. But there is a difference between them all, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does. We both read and we're similar. Like mom was just saying that she had just done a reading earlier today and she's like, "Oh, I just felt really, well, you tell your story. It's your story."
I was doing the reading, it was like, okay, why do sometimes the reading has to be so negative? But at the same time, there was a big message that came to the lady,
Hmm.
right? That I was doing
Hmm.
it for. And I mean, she had spirits coming through, talking to her through me, sort of thing, saying to her, change is necessary, right?
Hmm.
But it's delivering it sometimes that when you get so many negatives, you get, oh
Hmm.
boy, do I really have to
Mhm.
deliver it like this?
Yeah.
For them to receive that message, right? It was quite
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I feel like, this is why I put my trust in spirit. I'm like, okay, like, and the more you trust, it's like they're going to bring through, essentially with a reading. What I always like to tell people is you should leave the reading not feeling worse or scared. You should feel either empowered, or you should leave with some sort of clarity or guidance or something like that. And sometimes that guide, it might be, I don't know if a hard hand is the right word, but it's kind of like, this is what you need to know. And it's like, if it's quote unquote negative, I'm trusting that this is what they need for their growth. And I trust that they're ready to receive that if spirit is wanting me to communicate that with them.
That's right. There's messages definitely they need to hear.
Hmm.
And that was the case in this one.
Hmm.
She really needed to hear these messages. And even when her guides came through, they even just enforced it even that much more, right? So it was actually a good
Right.
reading,
Yeah.
but it came across. I said to her, I'm sorry, I didn't think you came here today to get told off, but your spirit guides really did deliver it to you that way.
Yeah. And I'm sure she was at a place where she was ready to receive that
She
if that's
was.
what they
She
were,
was.
and that's where it's like just trusting, like, okay. Whereas other readings, it's like maybe people aren't receptive to hearing those things, but spirit will give exactly what they need to hear. So
Yeah.
it's just like letting go and trusting that. But sometimes it can be like, I did have a reading last week actually, and without getting into detail, I remember being like, oh my gosh, like thinking the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm like, I don't want to offend this person, but I'm just gonna like say it. And the person was very receptive. She's like, no, 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 like, like give it to me. And it wasn't even for her, it was for her partner. It was a message coming through for her to give her partner. And I'm like, I don't want to offend her about, or anyways. But she's like, no, it's what apparently it's what like he needs to hear. So yeah, I feel you with that one.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts coming on 2025 being a 9 year? I'm not that much into numerology, but I do know
Mhm.
it's nine. It's a completion year. What's your
Mhm.
thoughts on the energies that are going to be coming in 2025?
Yeah, so I feel like, I mean, I don't know much about numerology myself, but just based on like feeling into the energy, I feel like depending on I want to say depending on where you're at. I know the past couple of years for some people like people have really gone through a lot of like death and rebirth, and I feel like this is going to be another year like that. I do feel like the next few years there's going to be a lot of darkness coming to surface. And this is not to scare anybody, but I believe the world is going through a death and rebirth, and in order to get into the new earth, for lack of a better word, we need to see the darkness, recognize it so that we can integrate it. And I feel like this is why there's so much chaos happening in the world right now. So I feel like I don't want to say there's going to be more chaos, but I feel like there's going to be more of those, hidden pieces that the world is yet to see and recognize brought to light. And it might not be easy, but I believe that it's all happening for a purpose. So I do feel like it is going to be chaotic, globally. And depending on where you're at with your journey, it's like as within, so without. So it's like for some people, if they still have things within that they're not willing to look at, there's a chance it's going to come out, one step at a time. And for other people, if they, have already been experiencing this, like for me, it kind of really started in 2020. I want to say even before that, but the darkness really started coming. I've been on this journey for a while. If you resonate with that, I feel like there is also going to be a lot more abundance coming in for some people as well. Justice coming in for some people who have been really going through that already, because we need people who are doing the work to really stand in their light. So I feel like people who have kind of already gone through this death and rebirth, for lack of a better word, and are finding themselves on a new path. I feel like things are going to kind of like, I don't know if get easier is the right word, but the universe is supporting you because we need you. We need your light. So know that things are going to start. It's like justice. I'm seeing the justice card in my mind's eye, for lack of a better word. So I feel like it just kind of really depends on, you and where you're at. But globally, I do feel like more chaos.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these things that are coming up in the news. And I don't really watch the news, but you get it
Yeah.
anyways
Hmm.
through other forms. So,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, you
but
do.
I think that's why all of this chaos and, like you said, darkness is coming up is because it's time for it to, for
Yeah.
one.
Hmm.
It needs to be recognized for what it is in
Hmm.
order to push us to move forward, right? And
Hmm.
I agree. I think the people that are light workers are going to help
Hmm.
Push it forward.
facilitate that for people, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Good changes too, though. There'll be some good changes that are going to happen,
Oh, absolutely. Like it's all
and
happening for the good,
you
This
bet.
is I'm not trying to instill fear or anything like that. It's definitely like needed and necessary. So,
It is
I just
necessary.
yeah, I just feel like it's like 4 years keeps coming to mind. Like I feel like over the next like 4 years specifically, there's going to be a lot of upheaval. But it's all for the best and it's going to be beautiful. Like at the end of the day, it's going to be beautiful transformations, even if it's like you gotta die to be reborn, and that's hard. It's a hard process, but it's so worth it. So,
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. So, do you think that in this time, then, as we kind of go into this darkness and find the light through it, do you think community is really an important part of that?
oh, I think it's huge. Like, community is huge. That's something that I've really been learning on my journey, through my journey. Before I really started, like personally, I was so hyper independent. Like, it's me. Like I need to do this all on my own. Just the way I was in day to day, like because of childhood and whatnot, I needed to be hyper independent, and I'm just starting to realize like we're here, we're doing this together, like we're in this together and we need to support one another. We need to lean on one another. We cannot do this alone. I feel like community is more important now more than ever. Yeah, it's important now more than ever. And showing compassion and love for one another is important now more than ever. There's so much divisiveness in this world, especially now, and love is the medicine. And it's, coming back to unity, to love. So I definitely feel like community is really, really important. I like one of the most important things. Yeah.
So, is that what help facilitate your beehive community that you have?
Yeah, so me and Holly, my friend slash business partner, we started the Beehive in August. So it's just our little baby. It's a few months old, and we felt like Spirit was leading us through this, and we put together an online community, and there's, exclusive content basically to help you through your healing journey, and stuff like that. And also to bring people together, other people who are also on this path, because I know it can feel lonely, especially if you're the only one in your circle really on this path, because it happens in layers, right? And I feel like people are starting to wake up, but there's majority of the world is still asleep, for lack of a better word. So it's like probably if you're listening to this podcast, if you're attracted to this, maybe you're on your way there, maybe you already are there. I feel like you get what I'm saying. So it's like I'm sure you can understand that it can be lonely and isolating sometimes, but we really it's important not to isolate yourself. Don't get me wrong, like it's important to go within, and sometimes we need time on our own to reflect and whatnot. I know a part of my journey was traveling, and I needed to be on my own, but you need community. We need each other, especially now. So, yeah, that was part of why we put the Beehive together.
That's amazing. And I think it's needed, right? I think we all need our communities, and I think we get drawn to where we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to work with, even if it's just for a time, and then we move on to, a different community as
Hmm.
we grow, I think,
Right.
as well. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like always trusting yourself, your intuition, and you're gonna your soul is gonna cross a person's path for a reason, a community's path for a reason. And when your soul has gotten what your soul's needed, then you might move forward or whatever it may be. It's just always trusting yourself in kind of whatever direction it takes you.
nice. Can you tell us a little bit about your monthly healing circles that you do?
Yeah, so Holly and I circles, very guided by spirit again. We have like a different theme every month. Um, Depending on what we feel called to, whatever the theme is. Like one of them was about stepping into your voice, for example. Like I know a lot of women and specifically have fear of being seen, stepping into their voice for multiple reasons, right? It could stem back from childhood. It could also stem from past lives, talking about the witch wound and stuff like that. So we will create a I don't know what the word is, but we'll do different things within the circle to facilitate growth with whatever the topic is. We often will have like a guided meditation. I'll always do a reading. Sometimes we have journal prompts, different things depending, like I said, on the topic and whatnot. And then it also is a way to kind of bring people together. We'll get people in breakout rooms so that they can meet other people who are also on this path. And yeah, it's just to facilitate healing at the end of the day. And it always just fills my heart so much. I always learn so much from the women who come too. I just feel like yeah, it just fills my heart.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, but this cold here, I'm waiting to
Um,
go.
don't
I'll just
apologize.
be quiet.
Um, sick. I was um October for like a really long time. So I was out. I couldn't do anything. So I'm impressed you're even here.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so I think with these healing circles and things like that, and I love that you're guided to do these things and with your business partner, you know, to follow these through and kind of get a sense of what people are looking for. And I think as light workers, that's kind of our mission is, what are people looking for right now? So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like for like Holly and I, we kind of just let like trust spirit's guidance, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, what's the theme? And it'll kind of come to us and we just like trust it, trust that that's what people need for whatever reason, trust that the right souls will find their way to us. Yeah.
We find with the podcast, if something's being said before we do the podcast, it's
Mm,
in the podcast, or it brings up something out after that we
right.
rate on, and go, wow, like, and then two of us are
Interesting.
just,
Yeah,
you know,
spirit's good that way. They'll give you little clues, like
yes,
little whether it be through a song or whatever it is.
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I love the messages through songs and through just overhearing things and yeah, and knowing this is what we're going to be
Hmm.
talking about, or this is kind of the
Hmm.
trajectory that will
Hmm.
follow. So I do love that. So what do you think is going to be new for you in 2025?
Good
A
question.
lot. Yeah, so yeah, I'll just share this with you guys since you're asking. I had a very big aha moment, for lack of a better word, a few weeks ago. I sat in an ayahuasca ceremony in November, mid-November, around the full moon. It happened to be on the full moon, and I've sat with ayahuasca a few times now, and I asked for clarity. One of my intentions was clarity on my path because I was like, I feel like there's a shift coming. And I was like, I don't know what it is though, but I feel like there's a shift. So I was just asking for some guidance and clarity. And after the ceremonies, because sometimes it's after the ceremonies, these big things, you'll get the big aha moment. So it was actually driving back to like on the way back, I had this aha moment. So I'm being called to serve the medicine, and that is going to require a lot of shift and change just in my day to day. I know that this is going to be like a 5 to 7 year journey. Mother Aya was showing me visions of like me in the Amazon jungle, like working under shamans, really studying, really getting to know the medicine, pulling away from social media. Not that I'm going to completely pull away, but I was putting so much of my energy in social media for a while because that's what I was being called to do. And I was getting the message of like end of the road, not like literally completely end of the road. It was kind of like this, okay, this was where your energy was going for now. It was meant to go there for now, but now it's like you're pulling away because you need to study. You're entering into a period of study essentially. So for me, that it was like a huge life path shift. It scares the shit out of me if I'm being completely honest. Um, but it also really excites me. It really excites me, but I know it's definitely pushing me out of my comfort zone. So I have no clue what it's going to look like, but I know that there's going to be a lot of change in my life because of it. So we'll kind of see where the path leads.
Fun. Sounds like
Interesting.
fun.
It does sound like
Yes, it
fun.
does.
And it's interesting because I have found like just different things that I've been watching or listening to. It just keeps coming up with the psilocybin, the
Mm,
right? Like
Yeah, me too.
the
Me
both
too.
of those paths
Yeah.
keep coming up
Yeah.
because I think that it's a time that, especially as light workers and people that are trying to find their spot,
hmm
this is starting to give them a little bit of clarity. So do you suggest that if somebody is wanting to go down one of those routes, that they find a good practitioner or a good, someone that can help
Yeah.
you in that?
Yeah, so I love that you asked that question. So, for me personally, plant medicine has been huge on my journey. It's changed my life, like fully changed my life. With that said, we all have different paths, different shoes to walk. So, I really just want to say, trust yourself. If you don't feel called to the medicine, trust that. Trust that. Not everybody needs the medicine. For me, it was big on my path, and it's making more sense now. I'm being called to serve the medicine. Of course, it was going to be a big part of my journey, and it's still going to be moving forward. But also, unfortunately, when it comes to plant medicine, I do believe plant medicine is going to really help the mental health crisis, like in this world. Even if it's like talking about microdosing psilocybin, I feel like it's going to do a lot of good. However, there's a lot of darkness around it, and it's because a lot of people are not actually in integrity, even if they think that they are. A lot of people haven't done enough work on themselves. A lot of people who are serving the medicine should not yet be serving the medicine. This is why I say, I feel called to serve the medicine. I have a 5 to 7 year journey, and this is going to be me being dedicated to this journey, studying, with the indigenous, like in, like truly, truly studying, not just because I want to make money. You know what I mean? So there's it. I just want to say, be very, very careful. Be very careful. Trust yourself. Trust your intuition. Trust your path. If you are being called to the medicine, it will find you. I didn't ask for it. It just started finding me. And when I felt called to ayahuasca, I said, okay, Mother Aya, if you're calling me, I would love to gift myself that for my 30th birthday. And I said that at the beginning I said that in January. My birthday was in December, not December, sorry, October. And that the month of October, I was invited to 3 separate ayahuasca ceremonies. So I was like, okay,
Oh.
Mother Aya, I hear you. Like you're making it very clear, you're making it very clear. Um, so just trust yourself with where you're being led. You don't, and do your research. You don't want to just, especially with ayahuasca, because you're so open. You're so open. It really puts you in a vulnerable state, for lack of a better word. You really want to make sure that you are in a safe container with people who really understand this medicine, people who are doing it from the heart space, not people who are going to take advantage or who are in it just for the money or whatever it may be. Like this space is so unregulated. So it's just so important to be careful. Maybe, if you feel called to it, it's like find somebody else who has gone already. They can, suggest somebody who they trust. So I just really want to make that very clear. Trust yourself, trust your path. It's not for everybody. Not everybody will be able to have access to it. But for other people, if you do feel called, like trust that as well. Like I said, for me, it was really big on my journey. But that's my path and my journey. We all have different roads, and all roads lead to the same place. It doesn't need to look the same. So, yeah, that's my little bit on that.
No, I think that's amazing. And I love how you say like you're being called to it, yet you know that this is a journey for you, right? So
Mhm.
I feel like you're coming from the right place with that because you know that this is not just oh, tomorrow I'm going to,
No,
be a giver of the medicine, right?
no,
This is
no.
my new journey where I'm embarking on. And I think
Yeah,
that's amazing. And we wish you the best on
You
that
bet we
because
do.
thank you.
that's fantastic. We need more
Thank
people
you.
like you that are following their intuition and following their heartfelt paths.
Their bliss in life, yes.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm a little scared, but that's not a bad thing, right? That's often where growth happens. So slowly, I'm in no rush. The path will reveal itself, and I'll just, yeah, let spirit lead.
That's wonderful. So, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media. You can find me on TikTok. You could also find me on Instagram. And then you could also find me on YouTube. I also have so like my name, like on TikTok, is like at Brittany Bento. On YouTube, it's at Brittany Bento. On Instagram, it's at Brittany Bento with the number 3 at the end because Brittany Bento was already taken. And then I also have 2 podcasts. So I have one that I host with my friend Holly. It's called the Multiple Truths podcast, and we have a lot of, we have a lot of guests on, just hearing different perspectives and that sort of a thing, really talking about healing, and that's yeah, just like healing and different healing modalities and that sort of a thing. And then I also have my own podcast called Going Beyond with Brittany, and I just kind of will talk about whatever I want to feel called to talk about. It kind of changes all the time. Just be mindful if you do follow me. I always feel like I need to give this disclaimer. There's a lot of fake accounts, a lot of scammers that pretend to be me, and they'll reach out and they'll ask you for money and, oh, I'll give you a reading, blah, 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 blah. So just be very mindful because there's so many of them. They have me blocked, so I can't really do anything about it, but I will never reach out to you. So I just, I'll never ask you for money. So I feel like I always need to say that.
Yes, it's sad that we do need to say that, but we do. I know I
Yeah.
was doing something with the social media the other day, and I'm like, what do you mean I'm holding an event? We're
Yes, I
not
was.
holding an event. So I'm
I
like,
know.
oh, okay, right? Like it just,
Yeah.
and so yeah, we try to tell people that too through our social medias. It's like we will not reach out to you for readings.
Mm,
Not going to ask you for money. The only way we're going to ask you for money is if you come to us for a service. Yes.
right. Right.
But right, that's an
That's different.
exchange.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I love that you mentioned that because yeah, I just find
Yeah,
like
it
so
Yeah.
was,
into that.
It's so frustrating. It's frustrating.
it,
And I know, unfortunately, people do fall for it. Like I've heard from countless people, and it's just like, oh,
sorry.
no. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's been amazing. So if you had a final thought to leave with everybody, what would it be?
Authenticity is coming to mind. I feel like the world needs you, like authentic you, not the masks that society has made you put on. Not judging yourself for those masks either, because there's a reason we have them, but focusing on your path, your healing, removing those masks, and just stepping into genuinely your authenticity, your uniqueness. That is your superpower. Your uniqueness is your superpower. And, growing up, I know a lot of us are made to feel like ashamed of our uniqueness because we just want to fit in. Embrace that uniqueness. You embrace what makes you feel weird, embrace what makes you feel uncomfortable. And by really stepping into your authenticity, I feel like you're going to be embarking on a path of true fulfillment. So, yeah,
Beautiful. Well said, girl. Well said.
thank you.
Well, it's been just a delight having you on, and we wish you all the best on your journey because I think it's going to be an interesting and fulfilling journey that you're on. And we'd love to have you back on sometime
Yep.
as you go on your journey to discuss different things as you're
Learning.
learning and being aware of. So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for having me. This was just a lovely conversation, and yeah, I would definitely love to share as time goes, as I learn more.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you both so much again for having me on today.
okay.
Our pleasure.
And thank you for being on, and everybody else, tune in next
You
time.
should.
Bye.
Bye.